Hello, welcome to Leftover Masters. Well, we've got some leftovers to make use of again. We're going to cook dinner tonight. I've been craving paella, so we're going to try and whip together a little Spanish dish called paella and see if we can do it. A little atypical. I found some different recipes online. Took a cooking class a few years ago and kind of have some memories of that as well. So we're going to see what we can piece together and make a meal. We're going to go to the fridge, and we had some leftover steak, which is not typical for paella, but I wanted to try it. Normally chicken I think would be used, but this could be kind of fun. Also have some cilantro and garlic and probably some kind of vegetable. I was going to use sweet peas, but we might use a few mixed vegetables just to add some color. And I think that's all we're going to need here for now. So I've already done a little bit of the prep work, and again, this is last night's grilled steak. It was pre-seasoned, and typically this recipe that I'm using calls for a marinated chicken, but I'm going to just dice this up. Of course, we seasoned it before we grilled it, so there's a little bit of seasoning on there, but I think it's all going to mix well. All right, so we're going to get that all ready and then set aside. So we've got our giant paella pan, and I'm going to cook some of this up. I already cooked the chorizo, which is one of the other ingredients. So that's why the pan looks a little bit used. But I'm going to get this going. So these giant pans are what's typically used for paella. This is a very classic dish. And the dish is actually named after the pan, which is called the paella pan. So we're just going to get that going. And again, the recipe called for some oregano and some paprika as part of the marinade. So we're just going to add it here. This steak is mostly done, so I'm just going to use it to kind of mix the spices in, and then ultimately we're just going to set that aside for later, and we'll add it to the rice part. Alright, so we're going to go over here and do some of our prep. So the next step is getting our garlic and onions ready to go. So we're just going to turn this on low. And this is one of these dishes where you just kind of want to settle in for the afternoon. It takes a little bit of time, but it's worth it when you're done. So I just leave this pan on low, and I can kind of add stuff while I'm getting it all prepared. Onions take a little bit longer to cook, so we'll always get those going first. So we're just going to slow cook and caramelize these. I'm just going to prepare our cilantro. I think the recipe calls for parsley, which I did not have. but I like cilantro a little bit better, especially in these types of dishes. So I'm going to put a little bit of this in for cooking, and then I'm also going to use a little bit for garnish at the end. So I'm just getting all that prepared right now. So again, this dish has been around for a long time, originated in Spain, and typically served as a lunch dish. Farmers working in the field, cooking it together over a big pan. It's classically done. Usually involves rice, and then there's about 100 different ways of cooking it after that. But some of the origins date back to certain locations where they would do a lot of cooking with seafood. So there's typically some kind of seafood. Can be mussels, can be clams, can be lobster, different types of things. We don't have a lot of that, so frozen shrimp is usually what I end up putting in this. And interestingly, I was trying to find some history on the name, but the word paella actually refers to the pan. I read one story where it means para ella, which means for someone you love. And then there's also some Arabic origins to the word. And interestingly, the Arabic origins is roughly translated in Arabic as leftovers, which I thought was perfect for leftover masters. So here we are. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter where it came from. It's a really good dish. It's a lot of fun to make. There's a billion different ways of making it, and you can afford to be creative. So we're going to add a little bit, save some for a garnish later, and then we'll get our tomatoes in there. So this calls for 15 ounces, and of course I got a 30-ounce can. So what that means is tomorrow we're going to have more leftovers, probably something with crushed tomatoes. So let that spread out and caramelize a little bit. Type of rice that you want to use, Arborio rice. So kind of a Spanish rice. We're gonna put this in, and you cook it right in the pan. So we're gonna be adding water to this later, so it does its steaming right in there. And I think our recipe called for 4 cups, but I only got 3. So about the only thing is we just have to adjust our water. Alright, so now we're just going to steam our rice. And I did turn up my heat just a little bit, just to kind of get this going, but we just got to keep an eye on it so it doesn't boil at this point. We're just going to steam the rice. This is a good time to add our saffron. So these little guys, you can decide what you want to do with them. If you want to add them or leave them out. A lot of people don't have these sitting around. It's kind of a hard spice to find, and this little jar is like 20 bucks, so it doesn't go a long ways, but it is a unique flavor for this dish, so I try to add it when I make it. Got it boiling a little bit now, so we'll just turn it down to let it steam. This is the time part when you read about these recipes. It's not too hard to assemble it, but it does take a while to cook it because you're cooking the rice in the pan. But all those flavors just meld together now. So we're just going to add a little salt and pepper. I think the recipe calls for doing it with the meat, but we'll add it here. That'll be perfect. And we've been cooking this for about 10 minutes, so we're going to add our chorizo, which we've browned. We're going to add our steak. And again, you got to fold that in so we don't make too much mess. A lot of times you'll see these giant paella pans with a gas burner cooked outside. And you can do it that way too. But this is just a nice, easy pan. It's a little bit cheaper. It's not quite the setup. And then you can do it at home, over stovetop, in the middle of winter, if you want. So we're just going to let that simmer again, keeping an eye on it every once in a while, just to make sure that we're not burning. But at the end, we are going to try and get that rice a little bit crispy. That's what makes paella so special, is that little crust at the end. So towards the end, we're going to add our shrimp. And we'll just add those and push them down in. Because they're basically cooked and deveined. They just need to be heated up a little bit towards the end of the cooking phase. So we're starting to get a little bit of that crunchy rice. I just lifted that up off the pan. This is where it's kind of nice to have a couple of these. So we're just going to lift that up and then set it back down. So our rice is almost done, and that's the point where we'll actually turn up the heat a little bit and try and get that rice nice and toasted. But you have to tend it. This isn't a good time to take a bathroom break. So you want to kind of keep an eye on it, use all your senses, sense the smell, you can kind of hear the sizzling. Obviously you can kind of watch it and see if it's drying out a little bit too. But that'll stick, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking to get that nice crust on the bottom. And you do that once your water has pretty much soaked into the rice. The rice is basically done. And now we're going to just do that final little touch that makes it fun. That's what we're talking about. That's what we want, that nice little crust. That's what makes this dish special. So we're just doing the final lift. I got the heat turned off at this point. Little garnish. Paella, eat and enjoy. So this is a family dinner. Everybody digs in, but in this country we use bowls. So do it however you want. Set it in the middle of a table and dig in, or dish up and go enjoy it. Thanks for joining us again on Leftover Masters. All right. So again, just to recap, that was paella, one of many variations. So again, this is Leftover Masters, so you kind of make do with what you have. Ideally, you would want to use Spanish chorizo, a little bit different than the Mexican sausage chorizo that you can typically find in the grocery stores. So sometimes you have to go to a little bit of a specialty store to find that. Definitely adds a different flavor, different texture. So I'd recommend that if you can. Otherwise, sub what you got. We didn't have any parsley, so we threw in some cilantro. Doesn't matter, still tastes great. And again, I'd never done it like this, typically with using chicken, but we had some leftover steak and I was in the mood for paella, so why not? I think it's going to taste great. A little bit more time involved. Some of these dishes are, quick little 10-15 minute dishes. This takes a little bit more time because you're cooking the rice and you're doing all of the folding in. But this is still a little over an hour. It took us to start to finish. So it's a worthwhile dish. Definitely great for a Sunday afternoon. And once again, thanks for joining us on Leftover Master. If you're interested, you can follow us on YouTube or join us on Instagram. Thanks.